Hi, I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Jess, and this is Financial Progress.
Before we begin, I just want to give a little disclaimer that this is just a conversation between friends. This is not financial advice. Please seek the help of a financial professional before making any financial decisions.
Thank you. Today we have a special guest. We have Alfredo Matos, a financial coach from Cash Viewpoint Consulting. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
So glad to be here. I'm honored to be here with you.
Thank you. So, before we get into your expertise and your topics, we want to know about your financial progress over the years.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Puerto Rico, and I'd say probably I grew up in a you could say middle class family at the time. You know, my parents both went to college, had jobs, and when I was born, they bought a house in a suburb kind of thing. You know, in a
Mhm.
mid-sized town in Puerto Rico, pretty average. But my parents got divorced when I was 4. Then I stayed with my mom, and that kind of like put us. I'd say, if I had to guesstimate, like lower middle class. We didn't have huge needs. There was always food at the table. My dad always supported with whatever was his part with child support and all that. But we didn't have a much than covering our basic needs. But I was always encouraged by the entire family to like pursue studies. So like one of the things they saw as a potential solution to improve was to go to college. I mean, there's arguments on both sides of that nowadays, but that was always something I had in mind. So I went through public school the entire time, went to the University of Puerto Rico, which was the lower cost option, but a good quality university. And I managed to do that debt free because it was, state funded schools, which kept the price low. And
Nice.
I worked through it. I worked through college as well. But around the time I was about to graduate, I got married, and we didn't have any financial education. The fact that I had gotten to that point debt free was, I don't even. I mean, it was, I got lucky, I guess. I did good decisions, not knowing that I was doing those good decisions. But the point is, with the transition of leaving college, moving, then we moved to Georgia and get into the new place, and you're married, you start thinking about, do we get a car, do we get this and that? We ended up with about $45,000 in debt, but we weren't big fans of that, so we started working heavy towards getting rid of it, and it took us about 2 years to get rid of it. And I am an engineer, so I had the blessing of having a really good income when I finally made it out of college. It took me a long time to get through college, by the way. And my wife wasn't working at the time, but we managed to get organized. When we figured out that, hey, we must be doing something wrong because we have good income and the income's going up, but we don't really see where the money's going. Like whenever we would do our taxes, would think like, where did all this money go? What happened? Like really? And how we did survive last year if we got a raise this year and there's like nothing to show for it? So we figured we must be doing something wrong, and kind of like got into studying and trying to figure out how to do this. It's kind of like what you guys are doing for the people that listen,
Mhm.
like trying to share what works, what doesn't work, and education. So we started looking for that, and then realized, well, there's a number of things that we need to do to get control of our finances, and we did, and worked as a team, and we were able to get rid of all of our debt within about 2 years. And they started investing, and in our mid 30s, we reached what they call now like post financial independence, which is super far way beyond what anybody in any of our families, either one of us, has been able to achieve. And so we're very blessed with that. And it took a lot of work and effort, but that's kind of like the overview of our journeys. We've been there when you had to look at literally your wallet or your bank account before making a decision to buy a very low cost item because you just don't know if you have enough, all the way to be high income earners that had to make a decision of whether we wanted to make a count and invest in our future, or just live the moment. So we've been kind of like in the whole spectrum, but yeah, that's kind of like the overview of our financial progress over the years.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for our listeners, can you just tell them a little bit about what is Coast Financial Independence?
Yeah, so it's this, I guess, a fairly new coined term. I'm not really sure who came up with it, but it's a subset of what you've heard out there about financial independence. There's like a whole movement and different versions, but Coast financial independence means that you have reached a point where you have enough assets or investments that you're covered for the future. You're covered for retirement. So in our case, we have no debt, and we've invested already enough for our retirement, right? So we're not fully financially independent, meaning we still need to get a little bit of income to pay like the regular expenses, food and gas and whatever, utilities. But we have everything else is paid off. So we have a paid off home, and our retirement investments are already covered. So that doesn't mean we don't continue to do it, but we don't have to. Like when you extrapolate what the investments that we have now are going to be by the time we're, let's say, 55 or 60, it's plenty. And so that's what it means. We're coasting to financial independence in that sense.
It also means that you can stop contributing to your retirement because you're coasting.
Right. And that opens up other opportunities, right? Because like, for example, at some point when I figure, look, we have enough for investing in the retirement accounts, which are, you have the limitation is that when you can use it in terms of age, right? 59 and a half. So at that point, because there was enough, and because those accounts are limited by age, that allowed us to then start building what people would call like the bridge account, which is investments that are not retirement investments. Therefore, you don't get all the tax benefits, but because it's a regular investment, you can access it at any time. So it would allow us then, as we build that account, to take years off of that retirement age, right? So like the more we build it, now that we don't have to put anything beyond 15 and a half, it'll cut years from when we could technically fully retire, make work fully optional, and still be okay the rest of our lives.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. That's a
Yes.
huge
Appreciate it.
accomplishment. It's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about what to do before, during, and after a divorce in order to thrive going forward.
All right.
I
Absolutely.
don't know what you want to start with. It's up to you.
Yeah. So, when the more I have these conversations, the more it allows me to reflect on what have been key factors to our financial success. And, definitely, the biggest one has been that we've worked as a team, my wife and I, right? I think, and that was a consideration when we were, thinking about getting married, at least not for me. It wasn't. It probably should have been. I kind of like got lucky that I didn't consider her views on finances before we made the decision, but I realized that later. So, this could have been big trouble if we weren't aligned, But also, other people don't get as lucky, right? So, whatever the reason is for a partnership to end, it's hard. It's tough in any way you can compare emotionally and whatnot. But the finances in particular get really complicated. And so, let's talk about how to prepare before. And I'm not saying you should be making a plan B, because ideally the idea is that once you make that commitment, it's a lifetime commitment, right? But we know that it's not always like that. So there are some things that you can do to have healthy financials or a financial life as a couple that would help you, whether you stay together forever or whether you decide to end it at some point, right? And some of those factors are awareness. Both of you need to be conscious and aware of what do we have, what do we owe. You need to have common goals so that you can work as a team, identify where you want to be, identify where you are, and then it's clear on figuring out how to get there, right? And it doesn't matter like who's earning the income, right? If it's one income, two incomes, if it's him or her, it doesn't matter. It's a matter of like when we sign on the dotted line, we became a team. We became one. In the eyes of the law, you're a 50-50 society, a partnership, right? And, if you get married through the church, spiritually, same thing, you became one. So it makes no sense to me that you would share an entire life, you make a lifetime commitment, you share a bed and maybe kids and all kinds of things, right? And not share your financial information. Like, even if you decide that, because there's different approaches on how to manage it, right? Even if you decide to have, let's say it's a two-income household and you decide to have separate finances for whatever reason, that's fine. But you should at least be aware. And that was my first point, right? Be aware of what we both have. And I say that because I've helped, like most of my clients have been ladies, and I've helped ladies in all of the stages of like, hey, I'm thinking about divorce. We're in the middle of one, or we're just got divorced. I don't know what to do, kind of thing. And you'd be surprised how many people, particularly the ladies I've been able to help, have no idea of what they owned, of what they owed. And I say they because it doesn't matter if you decided that, hey, I want to stay at home, I want to support from here, I want to work in the home, especially if there's kids or whatever, and he's the one doing whatever. It doesn't matter. Both of you own whatever we're doing, right? Whatever's the money, the investments, if it's a business, and the debts. So when we get busy with life, and it's okay to have roles, right? And sometimes you get one of the two. Mostly the ladies would decide, okay, I'll take care of the kids, you take care of the business, let's say, for example. And that's fine, but you need to have some sort of a family meeting every once
Transparency.
in a while
Yeah.
where you're aware, and
Hmm.
so that you can be part of the decision making process too.
Hmm.
Even if you don't want to get involved in the day to day because it's not your cup of tea or whatever, that's okay. But you need to be involved with the big decisions, and you need to be aware because that stuff affects you too. So anyway, so that's the before. Ideally, you would have a big plan as a team where, as a family, we like I said, we know where we're going. Even if we have separate banks, even if we have separate incomes, like, you can individualize it as much as you want depending on your style or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But you need to be walking in the same direction, right? Because you're a team. So if you completely separate everything, and one is like completely in debt and the other one has like a ton of investments, the net effect it's not that you're rich and the other one's poor, because you're still one. And if you stay together forever, same thing. And if you get divorced, same thing, because the things get divided and all the debt and all the assets belong to both of you. So anyway, so as for before. During, if you're gonna, like, you have to take different approaches if it's a healthy breakup, right, where we're adults and we're respecting each other and we're cordial and all that, is less concerning, right? You can play by the rules. But if it's something bad happened and you can't trust the other person, then you kind of like need to do everything you can to keep as much money on your side as possible. Let's say, for example, right, you wouldn't put a lot of your savings to pay off debt, for example. You don't want to do that. You want to let like the legal thing play out, and so that it ends up being fair. Because so anyway, so if the other person is not cooperating, is my point, you also kind of like need to pull to your side, and obviously take your lawyer's advice and all that. But you have to get a little bit selfish as well, is my point. If the thing is not going like it's supposed to go, and especially if you have kids, right? If you have kids, you have to think like the mama bear and protect them at all costs, and do whatever you can to protect the roof over their heads and the basic needs. And sometimes I've seen where, especially when you have a breakup, which is typical, if his income is like more than hers, for example, or if she had like no income, the guys, unfortunately, that no morals, right? They would try to delay the process and withhold as much of the assets, because then you leave the mom with kids without options.
Mhm.
And that I see that all the time, and I absolutely hate it, but it happens all the time. So the minute you see that things starts going sideways, you need to start stashing cash, stashing money, and pulling to your side, and getting resources. There's so many resources out there, legal and counseling and all that stuff. Anyway, so that's during. After, when everything's said and done, now it's on you. So even if you were the person, unlike Jess and Chrissy, that were paying attention to their money, now you have to. Like, there's literally no choice now, right?
Mhm.
Even if you had looked the other way because you were worried about other things in the relationship, and maybe you're like, I'll let him or her handle the money, your partner. Yeah, you can't do that anymore, right? Obviously. But I'm saying it because something's not obvious to some people. So you have to get a plan. You have to manage your money. Nobody else can do it for you. Nobody else will do it for you. You absolutely have to manage your money. If you have no idea how to do it, then get some help. There's so many resources out there, right? There's free information. There are a lot of nonprofits. There's people like me that help people with their finances. I mean, there's so many options. But you gotta get control of your money. You gotta come up with a plan. You gotta prioritize your expenses and at least get through it. Identify what needs to be done so that you can at least cover the basis, cover the needs of you and your babies if you have them. And then once you know and you understand that, hey, okay, we're good. I have figured out how to successfully cover our needs with the income I do have. Then it's time to look to the future and see, okay, how we can get healthier, how we can improve. And sometimes that means getting out of debt. Sometimes that means investing. It may look a little different for everybody, but at some point you have to then go beyond the now and start thinking of the later. And so anyway, that's kind of like the overview of how I would approach the whole subject.
Wow. So that's a lot to take in. And yeah, like no one goes into into a marriage expecting that you'll get divorced, but it's nice to plan ahead. What's your take on having like a prenuptial agreement ahead of time?
Yeah, honestly, I am conflicted on that. When I got married, if you would have asked me, I would have said, "Nah, we're." I grew up thinking of, although my parents were divorced, I grew up thinking of marriage as something that you do forever. So both my wife and I, we just didn't think that was the thing to do. But I guess it also depends on what stage you're in, right? Because like for us, we didn't have anything. Everything that we have, we built together.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing I need to worry about. If we at some point decided to end it or whatever, I mean, everything's belongs to both of us. It's clear cut for us, is what I'm trying to say, because we didn't have anything and we built all of it together.
Mm-hmm.
If I had gotten married later in life when I already had some wealth or whatever, maybe the conversation would be more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So one side of that argument is like, well, if I do that, it protects me, definitely protects you, right? And it protects me from getting into a relationship where the other person is secretively trying to take advantage of me.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of that is like, when you start with that, like all relationships are built on trust. So there's a little bit of mistrust in that whole process. So I don't know. I'm conflicted. The reason I'm conflicted is I always thought like, nah. But I've helped so many people that have been, especially ladies, have been in really bad situations. I was like, maybe it would have been a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say I would definitely advise it to someone if they're getting into a relationship where they have a big disparity on wealth, right? Like you've worked hard and done a lot of effort to grow whatever you have, and the other person hasn't worked as much.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you might want to consider it. Just taking into account the kind of like emotional aspect of that, because it does take a toll on the whole trust thing, right? But I think you can talk through it. I think you can talk about it. You can talk about the real risks that are out there, and just say, hey, look, this will just make me feel better, and I'm the intent is that is never needed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where you get the biggest value of that, when you already have a difference when you start in terms of wealth and financial practices. But if you're not aligned in how you see money, honestly, even if you have a prenup or whatever, that's still not going to prevent the problems that are going to arise later. I've also helped a lot of couples.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would spend more effort, before you get married, on seeing if you can actually get aligned with this person on this topic, because this topic touches everything, right? Touches everything else in your life. And if you're not aligned with this person, the prenup might protect some of your assets and whatever, but it's not going to protect you from having a failed relationship.
Yep.
So to me, in a way, having that conversation and just trying to get aligned with the person and see if you can get aligned. If you can't get aligned at all, to me, that's a big factor to consider, that maybe this is not the right person, even if everything else is perfect about that person, because that's just going to bring conflict, however you slice it.
That makes perfect sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I also think, because we kind of had like a prenuptial conversation prior, that a lot of it is also culture. Like we didn't grow up talking about prenuptial agreements. Like our parents didn't talk about it. Grandparents didn't talk about it. So we're like, wait, what's that? It's for rich people. Well, yes. No.
Yeah,
So that
that,
was
that
a great.
reminds me of trusts. We always see trusts as something that, yeah, for rich people, but it's not.
Mhm.
The minute you start growing a little bit of wealth,
Yeah.
like once you get your finances in order and you have some assets, you need to start thinking about a trust, especially if you have kids.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So, thank you for sharing that. So before we leave, we'd like to ask one big question, and that is, what is one piece of financial wisdom you would like to leave with our audience?
Yeah, I'd say take action, right? You can study this forever. You can know all about it. You can listen to Chrissy and Jess in all of their episodes and learn all kinds of things, and it will have no impact in your life unless you take action. Take action, right? You have to take action. Learning is important, because if you take action without proper information, you could make mistakes, but you learn from mistakes. So to me, it's worse having all the knowledge and not taking action in terms of your actual results, than taking action without knowledge. It's not practical, but you'll learn, right? And at some point you'll get results. But with all the information in the world and no action, you'll just get no results. So there's a lot of people out there that talk about mindset, and there's the people that talk about financial literacy and this and tricks and hacks and this and that, and you can spend all of your time and effort in all of that, You can have the greatest mindset in the world. You could have all the knowledge in the world, but if you just don't take action, nothing's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that luck is the intersection between preparedness and opportunity, or opportunity and preparedness. You got to be ready. So when the big opportunities come, you're ready to make those decisions. So take action. Don't leave it for later. Start now. You'll make mistakes along the way. That's okay. But start now. Don't keep delaying it. And that's what I'll say.
Perfectly said.
Yes, and that's amazing. Amazing piece of financial wisdom. So, how can our audience find you?
Yeah, I can find us in any of the social media with the handle Cash Viewpoint, and then on our website, cashviewpoint.com.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate having you here. So, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.